Okay, so shalom to, hold on guys, my music is loud in my own ears, so I'm nervous that it might be loud to you guys. Shalom to my brothers and sisters who may come across this video. I am coming to kind of just talk about something that the Father, I believe, literally woke me up with this morning. So, I've been reading this book that a sister of mine put me on to, Sister Brianna Montgomery. Hey, girl. She put me onto this book, and it took me a while to begin reading the book. I was reading something else, and then after I finished, I knew that I wanted to read this next, but for some reason, I didn't pick it up until a certain amount of time, until certain things happened in my own life, personally, for some reason. And I just feel like all of it's providence, all of it is the Most High's timing, and the Most High is really excellent like that, where He will make sure that we pick up things, or that we hear things, or that we experience things that are going to pretty much guide us towards whatever it is that He has for us to do. So He's not going to waste time. He's not going to waste information. He likes for it to be at the most optimal time for us to grasp it and to feel it and to take it in, so that we can begin to, pretty much live it. So anyway, within this particular book that I am reading, which I'll briefly mention it really quick, because if anyone else I would like for anybody who is ever moved by some of the messages that the Father gives me. I think that those who get some of these messages that are getting ready to be shared, it's literally because you are a part of the people that He intends to reach with these messages. So let me see. Let me go to the name of it is called Seven Archangels, an Arrow in Flight. And the author is, her name is Jane Lebak, Lebak. Anyway, that's just for anyone who might be interested in this. It's been teaching so much in each story. It's been beautiful to me. It's been amazing. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. But what the Father woke me up with this morning was, and it was like just thoughts in my brain, obviously, because I was asleep. So I'm not really talking or anything like that, at least not to my knowledge. But the word was pretty much that, the Father will allow His angels, He will allow His servants to endure things that they may have previously judged other people on. Now, the judgment could very well be righteous, because a lot of those who are called to serve the Father, if you pay attention, if this is even you, if you feel like this could be you that I'm describing, then you'll understand. But a lot of the elect in this world, they really, not all of them, but I'm talking, I guess, to a select even few, even out of the elect. There are people who really try very hard to pattern their lives as best they can after what they have learned is righteousness in the Father. And so much so to where they try to really keep themselves from all sorts of evil. And not that this is wrong or whatever, but the Father uses evil too, and He uses it for a few different reasons. And these were the things that He was bringing to my mind before I woke up. And it was the fact that a lot of us can try all we can to do things according to His word, according to His laws, and still wind up in situations that if other people were looking on, they could assume that you sinned to get there, or that this is your nature or something like that. They can misconstrue Or they can, of course, make fun because they know you as a person that really strives to do the right thing and who strives to overcome your lower nature, and yet for you still to succumb to something that you would have normally judged as unrighteous, or that you would have normally really done your best to stay away from, for you to now succumb to something like that, it could still be a point of ridicule for you. And even for yourself. A lot of us are very hard on ourselves because we are really striving for righteousness. And so what I learned through this book, as well as just through the Father continuously speaking to me, was that a lot of times the Father will allow his servants, those who are actively seeking to please him with their everything, he will still allow them to go through situations that for them they could believe that it'll cause them to fall from grace. To themselves, they can feel that they have somehow failed the Father, when really the Father is putting them in these situations not because of the righteous judgment that they may have passed, or the righteous analyzations that they, I don't even know if that's a word. It's not. I don't think. The righteous analysis that they could have put forth about other people that they were involved with, whatever. But more so that they themselves can become more of feelers. I've learned that I'm really analytical. Even though I'm a feeler as well, even in my feelings, I oftentimes have found that I'm trying to analyze my feelings, especially when things go wrong. When things go wrong in relationships, and these relationships can be friendships, partnerships, um, familial relationships, as well as relationships that we find ourselves in, whereas we are experiencing love or lust, even, or whatever you want to call it. I tend to be very analytical, and I'm analytical so that I can try to figure out what happened, maybe where I went wrong, so that I can fix it. And sometimes what the Father, I think, wants us to know is that we're not wrong. And that no matter how much we may have tried to avoid what we still wound up being in, the reason that we could not avoid it was because it was something he wants us to learn from it. Hands down. So even though it may be uncomfortable for us, we may not like it because it's dirty or it's filthy, or it's just not something that we would have, knowing ourselves, willingly walked into if he had given us a choice. It doesn't mean that we are the error, that we are the fault, that we are the mistakes, or that there was something that we did that caused it. So with that being said, the other portion of that was also the fact that sometimes we do cause it by the judgments that we do make. For example, the things that we say we would never do, and this doesn't have to be anyone who is, you know, you don't have to really be very spiritually inclined that much to even realize that sometimes the things that you say that you won't do, you will eventually do, depending on circumstances and whatever. And the things that you say you'll do, sometimes you won't. But in the cases of those who do want to please the Father, and they realize that there's something that maybe they spoke based off of analyzing another person's situation that they would not do, or that they purposed in their hearts. They may have never said anything out loud, but you purposed in your heart that you didn't want to go that route, or, if it were up to you, you would stay away from these things. When you find yourself in those situations, a lot of times it's so that you can understand where people could very well be coming from. It's to cause us as his servants, as his vessels, to be more understanding to others. So I hope that that's making sense. Ultimately, that's what the whole majority of him waking me up this morning with these thoughts were about. Sometimes when you're going through things, it's not because you really did anything wrong, or sometimes it is, but more than anything, it's a lesson for you, and for you to take in and get, and then also for you to be able to share. The other thing the Father wanted to mention was about compassion and his spirit. God is a spirit of love. So at the end of the day, love, we read about love and God's love in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. with that being said, righteousness can sometimes still be righteous without the spirit of love. It'll still be righteousness, you know? But the Father doesn't want us just to know the letter of the law. He doesn't want us just to do what's right, as in being cold and frigid or rigid rather. He wants us to have a balance of love, which comes from, it's a fiery feeling, and having knowledge of the law. He wants them to balance and to be cohesive and to work together. So you'll find a lot of times that if you are a person that's more of a fiery spirited person, who is about the love of the Father, who is about their feelings, who is very in touch with their emotions and also feelers of other people, then if you are imbalanced in that way, he will allow you to have to go through more things that'll teach you to be a little more rigid, to pay more attention to his laws, to pay more attention to guidelines that are in place to protect. That he'll do that. And then if you are more, also a lot of times feelers aren't as analytical with objectivity as those who are more on the colder analytical side. The feelers will oftentimes be analytical, but based off of their feelings, based upon what they're feeling, what energies are being emitted towards them, or what energies even they are picking up and sensing from other people, and of course their own. And then, whereas you have those who are more analytical and they're more about the letter of something, a lot of times they won't have the whole sensing and the feeling attributes that they do need to have. They won't be as compassionate because they won't be understanding towards people and their feelings. They'll be more like, well, this is what's supposed to happen. And, when these things happen, and this is what's not supposed to happen. So they will be more prone to being by the book, but having little to no compassion and love and understanding. Whereas those who feel may be very heavy with compassion, love, understanding, and be more lax on the law itself. And the Father needs the perfect balance between the both of them. So the Father will place both types of spirits in situations that will bring about what they're lacking. Okay? Within themselves first, and then sometimes you will find that when the Father begins to pair these two servants together with another person who a life partner or something like this, that they will also be paired with a person who is also opposite of them, because it is a way to kind of always have a check and balance for their more dominant character traits, if that makes sense. So a lot of times you'll see a person who is more of the knowledge, more about the letter of the law of God, more about what's just right to do. You'll see those people paired with a person who is still about the law, don't get me wrong, or still about obeying the Father, but more compassionate, more understanding towards other people as well as themselves, in touch with their feelings, in touch, very intuitive with the spirit of the law, aside from just the law itself. Like, you'll get one who's more stronger in another area than the other. And therefore, there'll always be a balance within that partnership. So anyway, these are the things that the Father placed in my spirit this morning that literally woke me up. It did prompt the post that was made a bit earlier, and I felt like I wanted to go just into a little more detail about that. Don't get discouraged when you know that you are a servant of the Father and you do really strive to be obedient to him. Even when you fall and make mistakes, understand that everything is not a punishment from the Father. Though we learn so much greater, we learn so much more, unfortunately, through suffering and pain. It's like those things, you do not forget the way you felt. You do not forget the things that you experienced. So these are sometimes the reasons why the Father will allow for us to go through very, very negative things that, if, like I said, we had our choices to choose, we would not select them. Based upon our strengths and our weaknesses, we wouldn't select them. So the Father knows that obviously he can't ask us. He has to allow these things to happen so that they can bring about the fruits that he desires that they do for each of our spirits. So with that being said, I hope that makes some sense. I hope that we will learn to take these experiences as learning lessons. Not to necessarily look like, oh my gosh, I must have done something wrong, but to begin to find the lesson in them. Because the quicker that we can find the lesson, the quicker that we'll be able to pay attention first and foremost, and then internalize those things and begin to put them in practice, so that then we'll be able to bring ourselves out of these lessons. Because all the Father wants is for us to get it. Once we get it, we can graduate and move on to something else. So with that being said, I'm going to say shalom to my brothers and sisters. I want to say happy new moon, or new month. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Love, light, peace, and blessings to everyone. Bye.